Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another legal breaking reporting video analysis update. A federal judge out of Boston has rightfully questioned and repeatedly questioned why Trump and his bogus administration suspended supplemental nutrition assistance programs or benefits, or otherwise known as food stamps benefits. Let's get into this new reporting by the New York Times that's read by an automated voice, so we will be taking a look, a read, and a listen. Let's get into it. Before we begin, please make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, and enjoy for more. And yeah, let's get into it.
Judge skeptical over Trump administration decision to suspend food stamps. This article is by Tony Rahm and Maya Schwader and read by an automated voice. The Trump administration on Thursday staunchly defended its decision to stop paying food stamps during the government shutdown, telling a federal court that it could not tap a tranche of available funds to provide aid to millions of poor Americans in November. The arguments at times appeared to frustrate and confound a federal judge, who promised to rule soon on a lawsuit filed by roughly 24 states that seek to ensure people do not go hungry as a result of a budgetary dispute. The legal wrangling concerned the imminent fate of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, which provides monthly benefits to roughly 42 million people nationally. By November 1st, the program is set to exhaust its remaining funds, making it the most significant and dire casualty of a government-wide closure that has now stretched into its fifth week. Entering the hearing, top officials in the Trump administration had acknowledged that they had billions of dollars left over across multiple federal accounts, including money in an emergency reserve specifically for SNAP. The amounts appeared to total more than would be needed to cover the full costs of providing food stamps if the shutdown continued through November. But lawyers for the Justice Department signaled that the administration could not or would not use those funds despite the looming shortfall. In court filings and oral arguments, the Trump administration maintained that there were legal obstacles to transferring existing money to SNAP, technical hurdles in remitting payments quickly, and other budgetary constraints to consider at the Agriculture Department, where the funds would originate. Throughout the Thursday hearing, Judge Talwani of the U.S. District Court for the District of Massachusetts frequently expressed skepticism about the administration's claims. At one point, the judge said she saw no reason the government could not tap its own emergency reserves, given the nature and duration of the fiscal crisis. Congress has put money in an emergency fund, she said. It's hard for me to understand how this isn't an emergency when there's no money, and a lot of people are needing their SNAP benefits. Judge Talwani later said she believed it was up to the Trump administration to figure out how you're going to stretch that emergency money for now. The administration's refusal to act underscored its broader strategy over the course of a government shutdown still with no end in sight. Throughout, President Trump has been willing to reprogram the federal budget, but only selectively, safeguarding programs at the heart of his political agenda while leaving some Americans to face the risk of real harm. The White House did not respond to a request for comment. For the roughly 42 million Americans who participate in the food stamp program, the immediate threat is hunger and financial hardship, with SNAP benefits set to disappear starting on November 1st. The benefits average around $187 a month, costing the federal government about $8 billion monthly, which lawmakers replenish every year as part of the budget process. SNAP also maintains a reserve in case of emergencies or shortfalls, and many Democrats and Republicans had encouraged the Trump administration to tap that fund, totaling about $5 billion, in the event the shutdown entered November. Initially, the Agriculture Department signaled publicly that it would indeed use this contingency money to prevent any interruption to food stamp benefits. But the Trump administration abruptly reversed course this month, saying that it could not legally drain the available reserves, except in cases of natural disasters. It also warned states that it would not reimburse them if they tried to finance food stamps on their own, though some local officials have forged ahead anyway. The possible loss of federal food assistance prompted 25 states and the District of Columbia to sue the Trump administration this week, arguing that the federal government had a legal and moral obligation to provision food aid. They essentially asked the U.S. District Court for the District of Massachusetts to force the federal government to pay SNAP benefits as scheduled in November. Millions of Americans will lose the benefits they've had for decades, said Michelle Pascucci, a lawyer for the Attorney General of Massachusetts, who represented the states in oral arguments. In court filings submitted late Wednesday, the Trump administration reaffirmed its opposition to provisioning the funds absent a broader spending deal in Congress. Lawyers for the Justice Department acknowledged that an interruption to food stamps would create a difficult situation for millions of Americans, but they insisted the court did not have the ability to prevent it. Officials told the court that the law did not allow them to transfer or spend money that Congress had not appropriated or in ways that lawmakers did not intend. That, they said, precluded many of the avenues that states have suggested for funding SNAP during the shutdown. The administration added that it would be operationally fraught if the court sided with states and forced the government to preserve SNAP benefits using emergency reserves. Officials said that it could take weeks, in some cases, to provision food stamps this way, and that doing so may leave beneficiaries with only less than half the amount they would normally receive in a month under SNAP. Such a partial payment has never been made, and for good reason, the government said in its filing. The Trump administration also argued against using a second tranche of funds, roughly $16.8 billion in leftover money for nutrition programs, financed partly by customs collections, to sustain SNAP in November. That same pot of funds had allowed the White House only weeks earlier to prevent an interruption to another low-income federal food assistance program, known as WIC, during the shutdown. Officials acknowledged this week that there were several differences that precluded them from taking the same approach with SNAP. At one point, they argued that it would cut into funds that should be available for child nutrition, forcing Congress to replenish the program later. In short, there was no option to simply fund the SNAP program fully without an appropriation, the government said, adding that the state's request portended its own costs and damaging consequences. The government's assertions offered a stark contrast with Mr. Trump's other actions during the shutdown, which has seen the administration move around billions of dollars to continue paying troops and law enforcement agents, including those assisting the administration's mass deportations. Unlike those functions of government, however, SNAP is a program that Mr. Trump and congressional Republicans have long sought to cut. They sharply restricted the program as part of their recent package of tax cuts, arguing that it was plagued by waste, fraud, and abuse.
Ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and enjoy for more legal breaking news that you need to know about. More to come soon.